Welcome back to Digital Perspectives, everybody. I'm Brad Kimes. You can follow me at the top of the screen on Twitter at BackupBradley and everything that we're talking about here. So today we're going to discuss Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance over the market and just how young this market really still is. And then we're also going to discuss some BIS news and a comment that someone shared on Twitter that I thought was really, really a great viewpoint, and we're going to get into that for a second too. I hope everybody domestically here in the United States, or if you're abroad and you are US, you had a great 4th of July with family and friends or loved ones. Otherwise, let's get into the news. First thing I want to share here is a picture that came from Mr. B XRP, and this was a picture from when we were obviously at Swell, and we got a chance to sneak into the conference room and get to sit up on the stage before, in between guests and stuff, and get a little shot, and it was just fun, right? And we all had such a great time, and I had a chance to get to meet Mr. B and DAI and out in Vegas at the conference, and Cryptopolis, and of course I was there with Dustin Planhole at both events for the Cryptonaires filming. And it was just a wonderful experience to get to meet all these guys. These are just really, really great people. And it, looking at this picture, I have to say, it still feels surreal when I think about being there and how incredible everybody from Ripple was towards every one of us, how hospitable and gracious they were to us. And I just won't forget it anytime soon, I'll tell you that. So shout out to Ripple for everything they did for all of us and what they do for Ripple and excuse me, the adoption of XRP. It's really great. What an experience. So shout out to Mr. B for sharing that. I had forgot about that picture until he shared it. So, all right, let's get into this thing. And I hear that the Swell this year is out of London, but it will be virtual. So I don't know if we'll be able to attend that, but I'll tell you what, I would certainly love to be able to. That would be great. All right, so here's one here, a piece of news real quick. Beijing sets up special fund as a part of a plan to become a blockchain hub and for blockchain innovation, obviously. And this is just more news that I'm not going to read the article to you, but you guys get it from the title. Things are moving forward, and we're going to continue that narrative here in a second. Okay, so real quick, I want to remind everybody too, shout out to DAI, did an amazing interview with the Sonny Liu from VeChain, co-founder, and it's really great conversation. If you have not seen it, here is the link on my profile to check it out. Now, before we get into the next piece, I want to keep going and remind everybody, this is an article that kind of reminded me of what was going on too. BMW, Walmart China, two top 4 auditing firms buy VET tokens to use VeChain, blockchain CEO says. So, I mean, there is good things going on with VeChain. Not financial advice, obviously, but I've been really hip to VeChain for quite a while now, and I'm just excited for them and everything they're doing there. So shout out to Sonny Liu and that interview with DAI. Really check it out. It is a great conversation. Lots of information covered in that. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about here is this right here. I want to go here next. Now, this is incredible. So let's go ahead and do this article really quickly. $190 million Bitcoin fund tied to former sheriff of Wall Street solidifies role as institutional leader. Really? New York Digital Asset or Digital Investment Group, NYDIG, today disclosed in a SEC filing that it closed $190 million Bitcoin fund. Wow. NYDIG Institutional Bitcoin Fund, LP, reports that it has 24 unnamed investors and is exempt under Rule 506 of the Regulation D Safe Harbor Protection established in 2013. Notably, another NYDIG investment called Bitcoin Strategy Fund was advised by Stone Ridge Asset Management, LLC, a $15 billion advisor whose regulatory affairs boss, Ben Lawsky, created the Bitcoin license granted to NYDIG in November 2018. Can't make it up. Less than a year after he was hired, Stonebridge co-founder Robert Gutman is listed as the CEO of NYDIG Execution LLC in 2018 statement from the New York Department of Financial Services. While details of the new fund are a mystery, it is notable for another reason. Last month, NYDIG announced it had closed another similar name fund for $140 million. If the fund called the NYDIG Bitcoin Yield Enhancement Fund, LP, is in fact a different financial instrument, NYDIG has quietly become one of the largest institutional investors in Bitcoin in the United States, with a total of $330 million in Bitcoin between the two funds. A representative of NYDIG declined to comment. The matter is further complicated by the name change to NYDIG Institutional Bitcoin Fund LP, updated today, which was previously called the NYDIG Institutional Digital Asset Fund LP. While we've been unable to confirm the $190 million NYDIG Institutional Bitcoin Fund LP updated today and the $140 million NYDIG Bitcoin Yield Enhancement Fund closed last month are in fact different, other evidence supports they are. Namely, the Institutional Bitcoin Fund made its first sale on October 26, 2018. According to today's documents, the Bitcoin Yield Enhancement Fund started selling just a week before it closed. A third fund for Bitcoin futures, called the Bitcoin Strategy Fund, is currently listed on Stone Ridge's site under the ticker symbol BTCNX. Either way, the presence of a new major player in the institutional investing Bitcoin space is notable. To date, institutional investing in cryptocurrency has been largely dominated by Barry Silbert's Grayscale, which has $4 billion in assets under management, with another new player, 3iQ, announcing a smaller but still significant $48 million exchange trade product listed on Toronto Exchange. Now, this is interesting here because there's a couple points that I want to bring to this. One, Ben Lawsky obviously wrote the Bit license. Ben Lawsky now works at Ripple. Ben Lawsky is still obviously bullish on Bitcoin. The other point I wanted to make here is that, you know, Bitcoin is dominant. Bitcoin controls the market. I've not been shy about this, and I know that myself and Spencer H. have had numerous conversations about this, and to varying degrees, we both, and I know a few other people that feel this way too. I feel like Bitcoin is controlled by a very small amount of actors that really are controlling the market, and these whales are countries for the most part. We know that, you know, stepping away from this article for a second, by the way. So we know that, for one, this article and these investment funds are huge institutional players. They're in this space. Let's know that, okay? They're in this space, and they're obviously not scared of the price drop. They're obviously not scared of the 3-year downturn of the market here. It's brought them in deeper, right? When's the best time to buy? When the price is low, right? So this to me just solidifies that for me. Again, not financial advice, but I've not been shy about the fact, stepping away from this investment fund and all that the institutions have been doing to get their position. I've always believed that that Bitcoin itself is controlled by different countries, China, USA, one or two others. And the reason I believe that is because I believe that cryptocurrency as a whole is a brand new digital asset class that is going to be really introduced to the traditional commodity markets. If you, in fact, understand that most of the mining is done in China for Bitcoin, well, there's China's control there. Even if it's done by private people in China, they're aware of it and they know it. We know Steve Mnuchin has called Bitcoin and referred to it as a national security issue and even a national security threat, I believe, but certainly a national security issue. We also know that Chris Giancarlo came out after he was the CFTC chairman and publicly said that the U.S. introduced the futures product on Bitcoin when it was running to $20,000 so they could pop the bubble on Bitcoin. Well, that to me gives you positive confirmation, certainly for me anyway, that the U.S. was helping to control the price of Bitcoin by introducing the futures on it. Since then, we've seen the market suppressed, and if you wanted to control an entire breadth of a new asset class like the digital assets, you wouldn't want to try to control and manipulate 5,000 different assets. You just want to control the biggest one at the top, which, because of the size of this market still being so small, believe it or not, they can sway this market wherever they want by controlling the one coin that really paces all the coins, and that's Bitcoin. I believe that, one, that is speculation on my part, but I believe broadly that that is fairly accurate. I also believe that I'm also long on Bitcoin, long term. I also believe that in order for all of this to happen one day in a way that I believe we all generally agree on, this isn't going to be some free society where, you get the, like most of the Bitcoin maxis believe. I don't believe that it's going to be that way. And it's not that I don't dream that that would be a beautiful dream. Of course it would. Governments and their regulators and their regulator armies are never going to allow this to happen. Not to the great degree, I don't believe. And that's why I'm long on Bitcoin, because I believe that what we're seeing here is institutions position themselves in this market, in this lack of clarity, and get their positions where they want to have them, because I think they understand this as well. And then we're going to see things like, the things we need to see from the different regulatory bodies, whether it be FSOC or FS, Financial Stability Board, or the OCC, and these entities, international level and domestic level, come out and give us the framework we need to provide a regulatory sandbox. Just like in the early days of the internet. I think we get that, and then we start to see some real development happen, because in order to get that kind of framework, I believe we've got to have an establishment of what protocols are really acceptable and what aren't. Now, that's another deeper conversation for another video, but I just feel like if the space is going to grow up, Bitcoin can't control the space forever. The dominance has to decouple. The Bitcoin dominance has to decouple from the altcoins. And I feel like the only way to really do that is to bring in some protocols, possibly like the ILP and the XRP ledger, and use those protocols, and maybe some other ones, but use those protocols to allow everything to transact on or across. Just for instance, if they were to make a decision and say all pre-mined Bitcoin or all coins that are mined need to be placed on the universal ledger, XRP ledger, instantly Bitcoin would now be back in the status of a potential currency, because it'd have a 3 to 4 second settlement time, right? Now, of course, you still have some volatility issues and liquidity issues, sure. But the reality is it would help. You could see a situation. This isn't me coming from a maxi standpoint. This is me coming from a standpoint of unifying, of creating a federated network of all of these different private networks being able to work together as one single unit, the way the internet does with the many different protocols that we have. It's one protocol to send an email. It's another protocol to send a file transfer that you just attach to the email. I see the same cohesion eventually happening here in the virtual asset space. And it obviously has not happened yet. But I believe in order for the space to really become legitimized, something of this nature has to happen. And until it does, I think whoever the large actors are, whether I'm correct or not, whoever the large actors in Wales truly are that are controlling Bitcoin, do control this market. And I try not to forget that or lose that perspective right now. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it right there. I just wanted to touch on this and show this. One more thing I did want to touch on before we get out of here is, let me come back to this because there was a really, really great point made by a viewer here on Twitter. And let me get this pulled up 1 second here. This is it right here. So shout out to Will Shriver. So Will Shriver shared this post. Let me go to his post here. And I just thought he nailed it. And this was a chart that I shared yesterday, and he just put such a great point to it. It's the Bank of International Settlements, which we know has recently joined together in a strategic partnership with the Federal Reserve, working on fintech innovation to foster innovation, which is not something banks normally do. So you know something's coming. All right, so basically the original post is, for central banks with an international currency, the role of crisis manager does not stop at national borders. And it basically goes in here and shows the charts from the time that the FX swap lines opened up, which Cryptopolis and myself cover quite extensively here on the channel. And I'm not going to open the graphs and see, but what I want to get to the point here is he says the BIS is unequivocally alerting the world to the simple fact that the Federal Reserve is now locked into a course of action. It must bail out the entire global dollar system, and in doing so, destroy the dollar as the global reserve currency. There's no escape. You know, I use the analogy or the old adage that, you know, if you're ever going to borrow money from a bank, don't borrow a little bit of money, because if you end up in a bad situation, you know, there's going to be this lender versus borrower thing where they're chasing you down for the little bit of money you borrowed. Whenever possible, borrow a lot of money, because if you ever run into bad times, you're not got a lender or borrower situation. You have a partnership, and you and the bank are in this together. The opening up of the swap lines is exactly how I see that relationship when that happened. It was the central banks basically agreeing that we are in this thing together. So that's exactly what I see here. Now, does that mean there's going to be an overnight thing? No, I don't think it is. But I think, generally speaking, his point of view on where things are headed there is that we are going to have to address the issue of what is going to happen to the dollar and the global reserve currency status. Now, I know that sounds so futuristic, but you know, this happened to the pound, you know, originally. That's how the U.S. dollar got there. So that, you know, this has happened before. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility to see a shift or a position where a neutral asset could be introduced at some point here. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And we'll keep an eye on it. But I also don't believe that, you know, while central bank digital currencies are being developed, explored, piloted, released, and these things are happening currently right now, I don't believe that they're doing all that so we can just have the same old walled gardens in a digital world that we have in a paper fiat world with all the friction. I believe they're developing all those things, and it would be to their advantage to have a neutral asset sitting between all of them. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it right there. I just want to share that. Shout out to Will Shriver for that point of view. I thought it was a great viewpoint, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. We'll catch you all on the next one. Take care.